Can I have some bread crusts? Mom hasn't come back for 3 weeks. In the middle of a blizzard, an 8-year-old grandchild walked barefoot on a mountain path for an hour. Both their feet and cheeks were red from the cold, and the child couldn't stop shivering from the cold. Upon asking, it appeared that the daughter-in-law had neglected the child, gallivanting somewhere else. I thought, how could someone do that? Unforgivable. I thought my husband shared the same feelings as I, with a frown between his brows. I'll never do it. Yet, those were the heartless words my husband uttered. Moreover, he began to act unexpectedly towards our frightened grandchild. I am Evelyn, a 70-year-old homemaker. My husband and I built a house deep in the mountains and lived there. Henry, my 75-year-old husband, looks grumpy, but it's my role to give instructions at home, and he would do anything if asked. Our son, James, lived at the foot of the mountain after getting a job, commuting by train from there. He lived nearby, thinking he could rush over if anything happened to us, going through great lengths. James once suggested, "Dad, Mom, isn't it about time you came down from the mountain? The area is prone to blizzards, and it's hard for just the two of you to shovel snow. Considering your age, I worry about you two living deep in the mountains in your 60s. What are you saying? Don't treat us like we're old." Henry always spoke sternly and was stubborn, but this was usual for him, even though our son looked troubled. "James, it's kind of you to think of us, but this mountain has been our family's land for generations, and your father has a strong attachment to it." As I gently responded, James lowered his eyebrows and said, "I see," showing his understanding. Then, one day, 10 years ago, our 33-year-old son suddenly said, "I have someone I want you to meet." Could it be? Has James finally found someone to marry? Evelyn, don't get too excited, it's unseemly. Despite my husband's curt attitude to temper my excitement, he seemed somewhat fidgety too. We were surprised when we saw the woman James brought with him. "Oh, she's quite young. Isn't she cute? Her name is Wendy. Nice to meet you." Wendy, with her characteristic sweet tone, was 24 years old, making her 9 years younger than our son. Last month, I had a fateful encounter with her at a bar my senior at work took me to. I knew she was the one. "Oh, James, you're making me blush." My son spoke passionately, his face red with excitement, while Wendy listened with a smile. I thought, what, they decided to marry after meeting at a bar? Is that really okay? Moreover, Wendy didn't bother to turn off her smartphone's ringtone or silence it in front of us, which made me increasingly worried as I listened to James's enthusiastic story. However, I couldn't openly express such remarks in front of them. I listened to my son and his girlfriend's story with a vague smile. After they left, I confided in my husband, who seemed to share the same opinion. He has no immunity to women because he was raised in the deep mountains. What will happen now? Henry hummed and tilted his head in thought. Not long after introducing her to us, James married Wendy. I visited my son and his wife's house, bearing gifts. "Wendy, this is a celebratory gift of sweets. Please enjoy it with James." "Ah, yes, thank you." When introduced to my son, the daughter-in-law's attitude was distant compared to before. She lounged on the sofa, never looking at me, and accepted the gift with one hand while fiddling with her smartphone. I thought, she seems rather rude. Despite feeling something amiss, I made sure to keep a smile on my face. "How are things with James?" "Nothing special. Just normal. He seems to be busy with work, so I'd be happy if you could support him as much as possible." Wendy glanced at me briefly before immediately returning her gaze to her smartphone. Well, I married James because I heard he was an elite at a prestigious company. What? Oh, nothing. Oh dear, look at the time. Seemingly dodging the topic, the daughter-in-law suddenly pretended to be in a hurry, saying let's get up, as she stood up from the sofa. Sorry, but I need to start preparing dinner, so could you please leave? Oh, in that case, I'll help. I'd love to spend some time and talk with James, it's been a while. As I offered to help, she frowned and made an obviously displeased face. Sigh. Fine, if you want to help that much, go ahead. Though she reluctantly agreed, I was shocked by her behavior when we entered the kitchen. Wait, Wendy. You can't cook the rice without washing it first. Wendy had put rice in the rice cooker, but she was about to turn it on with the water still murky. If you cook it like this, it won't taste good because the smell and impurities remain. It's fine. I always cook rice this way, and James eats it without noticing, saying it's delicious, delicious. You let my son eat rice in that state? Discovering the daughter-in-law's lazy character, I was appalled. Huh? Well, I have my nails done, and I wouldn't want my beautifully done nails to get damaged, right? Then at least use pre-washed rice or something. You're so annoying. Don't meddle in our affairs. Isn't this like harassment? What? Her bold attitude left me wondering if I was in the wrong, filled with a mix of feelings. When my son returned home, I was even more startled by what I heard. What? James does all the household chores? It's a bit tough balancing it with work, but I want Wendy to have it easy. Ah, my reliable darling, I love you. Seeing what looked like a lazy housewife praising her husband to get him to do all the housework, I was at a loss for words. Worrying that getting angry with my son might cut off our relationship, leading to a tragic outcome, I vaguely responded and left my son and his wife's house. I thought, if James is happy, perhaps it's better not to interfere too much. Let's watch and see for a while. Despite my worries, they seemed to be living happily. After a while, when I heard they had a baby, I was delighted with the birth of my first grandchild. When the daughter-in-law had returned from the hospital and settled in, my husband and I eagerly took a baby gift and visited my son and his wife's house. Despite Wendy's usual annoyed expression, I didn't mind and went in to peek at my grandchild sleeping in the crib. Max, it's Grandma. Oh, newborn babies are just so adorable. However, as I tried to pick up my grandson, Wendy quickly snatched the child away. Hey, he's still too small, and I don't want him catching any germs, so please keep your distance. That's no way to talk, is it? After that, every time I attempted to touch my grandson, Wendy would get angry, preventing me from getting close. Witnessing this exchange between Wendy and me, my husband Henry finally erupted in anger like a volcano. Who do you think you are? Evelyn has been looking forward to her first grandchild, and I can't keep silent any longer. Huh? That's not my problem. Wendy, calling Henry a nasty old man, snatched away the celebration gift and kicked us out of the house. Is that how she behaves when James isn't around, that woman? After separating from Wendy, Henry's anger did not subside for a while, and he called our son to express his concerns. However, James attempted to calm us down, saying, "The baby was just born, and Wendy is just being overcautious." This major argument between Wendy and us seemed to indicate her desire to completely sever ties with us. Even when we rang the doorbell at my son and daughter-in-law's house, they pretended not to be home, and we couldn't see Max until he turned 8 years old. Still, every year on our grandson's birthday, my husband and I made sure to send a gift. Occasionally, James would visit us, apologizing for not being able to let us see Max, and would help with snow shoveling. I thought, As long as James and Max are happy, that's what matters. Despite feeling unsettled, I longed for the day we could understand each other better with Wendy. Time passed, and one day, about 10 years after my son married Wendy, we received news. James, who lived at the foot of the mountain, informed us. "I'll be going on a long business trip for about half a year. I won't be able to help with the snow shoveling, but if anything happens, I'll rush over. Thank you for thinking of us. Do your best at your business trip." I was somewhat worried about my grandson Max living with Wendy while James was away, but I felt it was best not to express these concerns out loud. I did offer to help Wendy with household chores, but she strongly rejected my offer, saying, "Stay out of our family affairs." As a result, I was unable to assist. Then, a month after James left for his business trip, that incident occurred. "It's snowing heavily tonight. Yes, we'll need to get up early to shovel the snow, or the house will be buried." While discussing this with my husband, we heard a knock at the front door. I thought, who could it be at this hour? Being cautious, I quietly opened the door, and there stood a young boy. He had the look of my son about him. Surprised, I glanced around but didn't see Wendy anywhere. Puzzled yet concerned, I closed the door and let the boy into the foyer. "Could it be you, Max?" At my query, my grandson nodded yes. "Please, can I have some bread crusts? Mom hasn't come back for 3 weeks." Despite the blizzard, Max was inexplicably barefoot, his feet and cheeks red from the cold. Moreover, he was shivering slightly. As I was rendered speechless by the sight of my grandson in such a condition, my husband's loud voice suddenly came from behind. "Absolutely not." Emerging from the living room, Henry glared at Max. The intensity of his gaze made Max shrink back in fear, trembling. "Dear, there's no need to speak like that." Feeling sorry for Max, I attempted to calm Henry down, but in the next moment, my husband took an unexpected action. As Max tried to enter the house from the entryway, Henry commanded, "Wait," and began to undress him right there. "What are you doing? He'll just get colder like this. Bring a large towel." Henry quickly wrapped Max in a towel, picked him up, and took him to the living room. "I'll warm up Max's body. Start boiling water immediately. A foot bath will do for now. After that, we'll give him a bath." Surprised by my husband's brisk instructions, I followed his lead. I soaked our shivering grandson's feet in warm water in a basin and wrapped him in a blanket. Soon, Max's face relaxed and his shivering eased. Afterward, I washed him and dressed him in clean pajamas that James used to wear as a child. By that time, Henry had prepared a homemade meal. "If you're going to rely on us, you don't have to mention bread crusts. We'll feed you proper meals. If there's anything you want to eat, just tell Grandpa anything." "Yeah. Thank you." Moved by Henry's kind words, Max began to tear up as he ate. Meanwhile, I tried calling Wendy, but couldn't reach her, possibly because her phone was off. I decided to give up for the moment and started to ask Max for details. "What happened? Where is your mom, and what is she doing?" "I don't know. It's been 3 weeks since Mom left the house." According to Max, Wendy had said, "Don't leave the house, and don't contact anyone until I return," before leaving somewhere with a large suitcase. However, after the stock of pre-prepared meals and frozen food she left ran out, and with no money left, he walked for an hour through the mountain path to come to us. But it was a mystery how he knew where our house was, as we had only seen him when he was a baby. Upon further discussion, it turned out that James had taken Max near our house a few times to play and had told him, "This is where Grandpa and Grandma live." To avoid getting lost in the blizzard, Max had brought the shipping label from the birthday gift we had sent him, which he retrieved from the trash. While I marveled at how clever that was, there were still so many questions I wanted to ask. Why were you barefoot? What happened to your shoes? I was wearing boots, but they came off when I got stuck in the snow. Max had lost his shoes and walked barefoot to our house, enduring unimaginable hardship. Both Henry and I were trembling with rage at Wendy's terrible treatment. I can't stand this anymore. We absolutely cannot let this go. Thus, we decided to confront Wendy for making our precious grandson suffer. Convinced that Wendy had left for her selfish desires, Henry, Max, and I drove down the mountain to James and Wendy's house to find clues about her whereabouts. Additionally, I called a friend to ask for a favor, uncovering new facts. With this information, Henry and I decided to go and pick up Wendy. I thought, such selfishness is unforgivable. We'll teach her a lesson. A few days later, we planned to ambush Wendy at the airport on the day of her return. Waiting in the arrival lobby, we saw Wendy exiting with an unfamiliar man, rolling a suitcase. Welcome back, Wendy. Did you enjoy your trip to Hawaii? When I greeted her brightly on purpose, she looked shocked. What? Why are mother and father here? Oh, we just had some errands and stopped by your house, but it seemed you were out. So, we heard from Max. I slightly twisted the truth, keeping it a secret that Max had come to our house for help. Max was not at the airport but was being looked after by a friend. That kid spilled the beans to Grandma, didn't he? Wendy bit her lip in frustration. No, Max didn't know where you went. However, we saw photos of you enjoying Hawaii on your SNS. I'm not particularly savvy with the internet or social media myself. I actually asked a friend of mine who is into social media to see if she could find any sign of Wendy. Sure enough, she found a photo that clearly showed Wendy's face. Additionally, I managed to snap a picture of her coming out of the airport exit, arm in arm with an unknown man. Who's that man she looks so cozy with? Caught off guard, Wendy quickly distanced herself from the man, but it was too late for excuses. So, you've been gallivanting with another man while James was away on business? So what if I have? Instead of feeling cornered, Wendy arrogantly scoffed at us. Your foolish son is head over heels for me. He won't believe anything but what I tell him. Oh, really? Then he'll certainly believe what you say now, won't he? I brandished my smartphone at her, revealing the person she least wanted to see. She was so shocked she nearly jumped. Gah. James. Indeed, I had been on a video call with James the whole time, and he had overheard everything. I can't believe this. Are you kidding me, Wendy? Even though James had been somewhat skeptical when I first told him, hearing the truth straight from Wendy left him utterly dumbfounded. No, this isn't. It's not what it looks like. I'm disillusioned with you. I'll be sending the divorce papers. I'll be taking custody of Max. Wait, just wait a minute. I'll be getting a lawyer to file for compensation and child support, so brace yourself. James was clearly furious, and his tone left no room for doubt that he wouldn't forgive Wendy. To add insult to injury, Wendy had no job and relied entirely on James for living expenses. The mention of compensation visibly drained the color from her face. Desperately, she turned to the man beside her. Darling, if you love me, you'll help me out, right? Just front the money, and I'll pay you back later? However, the man shook his head, pushing Wendy away in panic. Are you out of your mind? I have another family. There's no way I can pay that kind of money. Don't be so cold. You're going to abandon me. I'm appalled. A double affair, really. And so, utterly abandoned by everyone, Wendy turned to me for help. Mother, I'm so sorry for everything. Please, persuade James. I can't afford compensation or child support. There she was, making a public spectacle at the airport, subjected to the curious stares and smartphone cameras of bystanders, desperately bowing down over and over again. There's nothing you can do to make me forgive you. Give it up. Rejected by me, Wendy then turned to my husband with teary eyes, begging, please help me, Father. A wife who can't even take care of her own child and cheats while her husband is away has no place in our home. Don't you ever cross our doorstep again. You'll have to pay the compensation and child support somehow, even if it means taking out loans. And from now on, stay away from Max and us. With that, Wendy's world came crashing down as she muttered, it's all over. Not wanting to witness her downfall, the affair partner she was with had already disappeared. Wendy, this is the beginning of your new life. Live it full of regret for your actions. Leaving a sobbing Wendy behind, my husband and I left the airport. We hoped that this ordeal might make her realize the extent of the pain she had caused Max. Following this, James divorced Wendy, claiming $15,000 in adultery damages and $10,500 in child support. James also demanded the same amount from Wendy's lover, who paid up promptly. This led to Wendy's affair being exposed to the lover's wife, who then sued her for damages. Burdened with debt, Wendy was forced out of her home and moved to the city to start working nights to make ends meet. I can't believe I fell for such a woman. It's been a wake-up call. He's now focusing on raising Max and his job. Now and then, James brings Max over to our place. Grandpa, Grandma, I love you. Thank you for saving me. Max, who had been so frightened before, has grown fond of Henry, who in turn dotes on him with joy. Watching the two of them, I'm content, enjoying the peaceful times returned to our home.